Okay. I'm just gonna start to I'm gonna introduce us and go to Sanna for a little bit, and then I will talk to you guys. Okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Já, góðan daginn og verið velkomin í Hin Reykjavík, þáttinn þar sem við reynum að tala við fólk sem birtist ekki mikið í meginstraumsmiðlum. Þáttinn í dag verður með töluvert öðruvísi sniði, við ætlum að hafa hann á ensku og ég ætla að skipta núna. Welcome to the show Other Reykjavík, the show where we try to talk to people who are not represented well in the mainstream media. Today we have 3 guests. We have Sanna Magdalena Mörtudóttir, like usually almost, and then we have Agnieszka and Viola. I'm going to start. We're going to be talking about sort of the experience of people with foreign backgrounds during this COVID crisis. I'm going to start with Sanna. Sanna, why this topic? Why are we talking about this today?
What we have been trying to talk about in our show is like voices that aren't heard a lot about, voices that we don't hear a lot about in the discussion. And I feel like when I've been reading the news and going through the newspapers, it's like basically reading over the same topics day after day with a bit of a change, but it's like the same people, the same topics, the same themes. And I'm like, surely this crisis and this situation must be affecting different groups of people in different ways. So I feel like this hasn't been addressed, and we need to be hearing like from a lot of different people about how they are experiencing this and how we should be tackling this crisis. And also when we hear like we should be focusing on getting access to people with a foreign background, that is really important. But I feel also like in the discussion here in the Icelandic society that people that have moved here to Iceland are often just like clumped into one kind of similar group, and people seem to think like, oh yeah, people with a foreign background just probably have similar views on things and are just kind of focusing on everyone kind of like belonging to one same group. But it's like a diverse group of people with different experiences, different expectations. So this is something that we need to address, and we just need to hear different voices when we are thinking about COVID and the crisis and how it affects people today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start with Agnieszka. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
I wanted to begin with just asking how the COVID situation has affected your life.
Mine personally?
Yes, you personally.
Not that much, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were not quarantined. We didn't come in touch with anyone infected, so we could sort of keep our life on a normal track as most of people did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is also thanks to the fact that both the kindergartens and elementary schools had been open, at least to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't go completely crazy, everyone. But it has affected us, I think, my family and me, in a very similar way to as Icelanders, which means we had to cut some of the connections, not permanently, but we couldn't meet our friends and so on. And fortunately, neither of us lost their jobs. I'm actually not working right now, but my husband, he didn't lose his job. So we've been doing okay compared to some other people, I would guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And how about, you know, people around you? Do you see, how should I say it? Maybe like, have you talked to other people in like the immigrant community, people of foreign backgrounds?
Yeah, well, that was a very hot topic, so you know, everyone was talking about it. And I would say that most of people I know and I met and I know about that are of foreign origin, and particularly Poles here, they've been a bit freaked out. And some of them didn't send their kids to school for a long time. Like, I would say 2 weeks before Samkomuban actually took place. So the kids been out of school for 2 months or so right now. And I can understand it because we don't have the network here in a society. That is the reality of being an immigrant anywhere, I think, is that if something happens to you and you have kids and they are your sole responsibility, there is nobody that can actually, there is no extended family that will, you know, grab you while you fall. So I think they have been more precautious about this, about not getting infected. And the other thing is that there is a very active group on Facebook that is made of Poles here in Iceland, or people that are thinking about moving here and so on. And it's been a bit vivid. And there had been a lot of opinions that Icelandic government was not doing enough compared to other countries, because Poland had gone a bit further. Yeah, there had been some voices, critical voices, saying that well, what the government here is doing is basically going to get all of us killed, which is not my opinion, but I have read a few of those, and some conspiracy theories, of course, as well, and so on. And some of them actually were telling about foreigners being denied access to testing and so on, that we are not being taken seriously enough with our fears, and that maybe some services that Icelanders would get health-wise were not available for us. That was like one of the conspiracy theories. And it was not only among Poles. There was actually, I got invited to a group on Facebook that was like more foreigners in Iceland thinking along this way. And quite lately, it has changed a bit the attitude. I would say that Kauri's company and started targeting immigrants for testing. But for the people that had those worries and fears in them, that was like too little, too late a bit, because that was just quite lately, and we had this situation for quite a long time now. So yeah, I would say that in general, our immigrant community feels more vulnerable when it comes to this, and a bit neglected. That is my feeling.
All right, thank you. We'll come back to you later. So Viola, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
And if I may ask, how has this COVID situation affected your life?
Well, I'm working as an artist, and I'm mostly doing like freelancer jobs, but it's like half of my incomes, and half of it was working in the restaurants. And I was working in 2 restaurants, and both were closed down, so I lost part of my income. I was quarantined because I had I met a person, like at work there was a person that should be quarantined but didn't obey to the quarantine law, decided to come to work although he was asked to stay at home. Even he's also from Poland, and he wanted to take flight to Poland, and actually he was positive tested after a couple days. So I was quarantined. And with the COVID, I was actually one of the people that is a part of this group that was Agnieszka mentioning. And I heard plenty of stories about people being rejected from getting tested, but both foreigners and Icelanders. So it was kind of 50-50. We were kind of trying to have the data, how many people, if there's like some kind of different way of perceiving people if they speak Icelandic or they doesn't speak Icelandic, because I think that's kind of the main thing very often. I don't know, sometimes I'm feeling like that people that doesn't speak Icelandic, they feel that they're being missed out in some point. But after I was like kind of trying to reach, and my other friends, they were like trying to reach people, and actually it was just the same, like Icelanders and foreigners, they were treated differently, and some of them, they were rejected, although they had the contact with, for example, people that they were infected. Actually, I was really nicely treated. I got the test like 2 days after when I had symptoms. I was negative, so yeah, but yeah, I think like when it comes to foreigners, there was this weird implementation, like kind of a statement made by the on this 2 o'clock meeting, that following the data, like only 4% of like kind of when it was the proportion, like 96% of people being tested were Icelanders, and then only 4% of people being tested, they were immigrants. So they kind of made this suggestion that they're a little bit scared of like not reaching the people of foreign origins, that they don't understand Icelandic. And it was also really like weird vibe about the statement, because they were kind of saying that, not saying, but like they were kind of giving the feeling that or we didn't make too much, like not make enough to reach those people, or they don't want to be tested. And they were also trying to give people that they don't have kenitala, but like it's extremely hard to, like, people living on the edge of the society, because we talking also about there's a number of people living here with that they don't very often speak any other language that they own, and they don't have any social security, and they don't know anything. So yeah.
And it's not like all the information was available right away. I mean, the COVID page was up for, I don't know what, 2 weeks or something before it was translated into all these languages. Yeah,
there was like kind of there's one Icelandic lady that she was just translating things for the home away page, and it was just her initiative, like the whole this like 2 o'clock meetings. And today they actually translated it, like the whole meeting on the roof to English. So but it's like, it's almost the end. And then we're talking about the translation. There was like also like once or twice there was like translation to Polish, and I think also to English, like simultaneously. But I just feel that if you are a foreigner and then you're facing this kind of situation, like I'm not telling about like the workers' rights right now, because most of my friends, they lost their jobs, and there's like not enough support, or like, you know, there was something made like this that they're not getting the unemployment benefits. There's plenty of people that they don't have the access because they haven't been working enough, or they didn't have the enough percentage to like get the unemployment benefits, and they are being stuck here. So yeah. Oof.
That's gotta be tough. What, may I ask, Agnieszka, what do you think, like, Icelandic people need to know about the experience of the immigrant community right now? Is there some information or something about what you guys or people you know are living through that we should be aware of, that we aren't?
Referring to COVID?
Yeah, or just in general. difficult question, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I've been living. Yeah, I have been living here in Iceland for 12 years now. So it's I got accustomed to some things that I don't think that much about right now. But I think it is still, even though there's so many foreigners, it is still pretty difficult for newcomers here to adjust. And I wouldn't say that it's Icelanders to blame for it, but I think the main problem has always been, and as Viola referred to as well, it's the language. And there is this demand of learning Icelandic, no matter what position you're gonna be working at, no matter what you're gonna do, no matter what your qualifications are, you are supposed to learn Icelandic, which, okay, it's fair enough, because you need to be able to take part in a society and daily life. But at the same time, Iceland is very painfully missing any sort of consistent plan on how to help foreigners learning that language, because it's all on our shoulders, every single thing. There is no unified policy about support for the companies, where if the company would be willing to send an immigrant to a language course. And most of immigrants here that come here, there are some specialists that come and just jump straight into a well-paid job because of a very narrow field. But the reality is that most of immigrants here, they fulfill most of the lowest paid positions. And just to meet ends meet, they just need to, work as much as they possibly can. So if they are working this 8 or 9 or even 10-hour shifts, and then they are trying to live their normal life, which we all do, which is like, I don't know, just relax and meet their friends and just go to bonus, for example, that doesn't leave you that much time, and it leaves you absolutely no energy to go to some language course that is less 2 or 3 hours, not to mention how expensive those courses are. They have always been, and now like 2 months or 3 months course costs like around 60,000 kroner. So that is a lot. So it's about time and it's about money, and also it's like I think what would help both sides, both immigrants and Icelanders, would be for the government or municipalities to have some sort of unified plan or of how to help both immigrants and their employers when it comes to this. There are some companies, not many of them, but there were some that they did send their employees to language courses because they felt that it's beneficial for the company, of course. But we're talking about big companies. We're talking about Landspítali, for example, that has separate Icelandic course in Háskóli Íslands for the nurses from Philippines that come here. And it's like a 1-year, very intensive practical diploma course. And that is in my opinion, that is the way that more companies and maybe municipalities should be thinking. Because without the language and opportunity to learn the language, you can't really be a part of the society, and you're missing out both socially and just as with this COVID situation, you're missing out on like very, very crucial informations. And when there is no information, there are misunderstandings and those suspicions that come up. And I think this is one of the main problems. But for the usual regular Icelander that has nothing to do with government policies, I would recommend to lower their expectations a bit towards us, towards the language, because not everyone will learn Icelandic. Not everyone is good at languages. Not everyone in the world has the same capacity to learn a new language. And a bit more understanding about that would be nice. I would say so. And I say it from a position of a person that does speak Icelandic.
Mm-hmm.
And
be more forgiving and relax a little bit.
yeah. Because, it's like we have a split personality about this, I think. That is my experience. That on one hand, we as immigrants, we know we will never be perceived as Icelanders. We will always be immigrants, no matter what happens. And it's okay, because that is the price you pay for moving. But on the other hand, there is this sort of like unspoken demand of assimilation. And assimilation is never good. It's not the same as integration. No, and it's like, you need to be like us. You need to follow our rules. You need to speak our language. You need to abide our cultural world. And I would prefer for Icelanders to be a bit more open and maybe a bit more curious about our culture. Not only our Poles, I mean immigrants in general. Because we have a lot to bring to the table. It's just that sometimes it all just closes on the language.
Yeah, I think Icelandic people really need to get to know your food, for example.
Yeah, well,
there is a Polish-run like a meat shop close to where I live, and they've become my best friends now. Viola, do you agree with what Agnieszka was saying?
Yeah, I would totally agree what Agnieszka is saying. I speak Icelandic at the level that I can communicate, but like I'm not fluent in it. So for example, I can read newspapers and stuff like that. And in this situation, I was actually like helping some of my friends getting the information from the news. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with Agnieszka. This is the problem that it's really like, because I always feel like I'm being shamed that I don't speak it, like I speak it with like accent. Sometimes like I'm trying to speak and then people switching to English and all of the things, but like it's not helping me. And yeah, just have this like patience towards us, and and like this kind of being interested that we are not only like the cheap labor. Like we actually have a lot to bring to the table, because a lot of my friends like that we are like the first generation of the newcomers. We have like PhDs, we have master degrees, and we are working in restaurants. And we would be like really happy to help and to give our knowledge. Like I'm quite lucky because I'm saying, like I'm working half, like part-time is my works in like restaurants, and part-time I'm working as an artist. So I'm the lucky one, but there's plenty of us. And I'm not talking only about, people from the East Europe, but like we are just being like, oh, you don't speak the language, so you have nothing to say. This is not the way. Because if you would like, even from like the economical point of view, I don't know, just like if you invest in those people and help them learn the language, they have the like big knowledge that they would be really happy to give to the country, to contribute. Because most of the people that they come in here, like in my age, this is their decision because they felt fascinated by this country and they want to stay here and they want to live. But then will be the building frustration that might come to another generation, of the second generation, because they might have kids here. And they will be not feeling like welcome and tolerated and being like somebody that is equal. And the other thing about the COVID, I feel like Icelanders, they should, because now we don't have like so many like new cases. So it's being like a little bit like, oh yeah, like let's celebrate, like everybody's going out and it's amazing weather. But still like we need to keep the social distancing, especially in the shops and especially like the young people, because I noticed that sometimes like I was helping my friend with immune system problems, like we went to like around like 10 o'clock in the evening to do some shopping, so there will be not so many people, and there was plenty of young people doing the grocery. So maybe just still follow the social distancing the physical distancing rules, and I hope that everything will be fine.
Yeah. Another thing that I've been seeing that what I thought it was Vísir has been translating some news, some articles into Polish. Do you think that it's? I mean, we have such a huge population of Polish people in Iceland now. When should like the Icelandic media just start having like a Polish department or something like this? Do you feel like it's time?
Like 2 years ago?
Yeah. And Viola?
Yeah, I feel also, but it's happening slowly, like that. They're like the structures are changing, because, for example, like this year I'm organizing like in the Westfjords, not in the capital, like the Eastfjords, not in the capital area, like a festival that it's like dedicated only to Polish artists living in Iceland. So I think it's like slowly changes, but like, you know, the higher structures that they are the most kind of influential, they still like kind of rejecting the idea that we like the Iceland have such a big minority, and you know, it's like, I think it should happen like as soon as possible.
Yeah, I agree. And I also, how many, do you guys know how many Polish people live in Iceland now?
Oh my God. Like,
I don't know.
10?
Getting to...
Around 15,000, I think.
Yeah. I think also like 15. Yeah.
Maybe more, yeah.
That's quite a lot of people, and there are so many Polish children of Polish descent and Polish children in our school systems now. When do you guys feel that you should have some demand that Polish should be taught in school, or some Polish history or something like this?
No. I have a kid that is in the 1st grade right now. And no, we have a really well-functioning Polish school on Saturdays in Reykjavík, and they are covering this field. So if somebody is interested in that, they do have opportunity to send their kid, and the main emphasis there is on Polish language and Polish history. But we don't live in Poland. We live in Iceland. And but having said that, I think, and that is my both observation and personal experience right now, and I'm really trying to do something about this in Hafnarfjörður, where I live. We need, as parents or as immigrant parents that speak foreign language at home, we need more help with us helping our children in Icelandic school system, because it doesn't work. Because there, at this point, as it is right now, there are set exactly the same rules and the same demands and the same possibilities for all the kids, regardless of their origin. So the simplest thing is the heimanám, homework, that they are being sent home with, and for the 6-year-old, that is basically reading. And we, as immigrants, have very limited resources to help our kids with that. And I'm not talking about, not to mention the language skill and even speaking Icelandic, but for example, one of the tasks is to correct their mistakes while they are reading. And I'm just mind blown about it, because like, well, how am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to hear or know whether this word has an E or an upsilon? You know what I mean? It's like, it's like a bit out of this world. And it's just gonna add up, because he's 6 and he's gonna, there's 9 more grades to go. And then when I went to school, the first meeting with the teacher, and I was like, what is the school system? What is the school, this particular school, or Hafnarfjörður, or just a school like here in Iceland, doing particularly to help those kids not to be better than Icelandic kids, just to equal their opportunities, because whatever resources they don't have access to now, that will actually have a very heavy influence on their future. And there have been reports from the Menntamálastofnun that increasingly children that are second generation, that are parents, children of immigrants, they are not doing as well as at school system, both in grunnskóli and in high school, as the locals. And that is purely because of Icelandic. And it's purely because of the fact that we are very limited in what we can do. And and not everyone has time and resources and will to do as I did. I actually went to a 3-year Íslenska sem annað mál at Háskóla Íslands, just to be able to help my child with homework. That was my main goal. I don't really care about this diploma that much. I just wanted to be able to pronounce all those vowels and speak them. I'm not kidding. And learn the grammar just so I can actually help him and then his younger sister. But that's like, that's a bit of a unicorn attitude among immigrants. Not everyone can do that. You know what I mean? And it's lacking. I have checked and I have talked to everyone. I talked to the school principal and the municipality about this, and everyone is just like, and they tell us to, send them to Heimanám that Red Cross is providing. That's like, so
the system needs to adjust itself to it needs to adjust itself. It's like kind of outdated and isn't taking everyone's needs into the picture.
Yeah, like Agnieszka was telling that the problems with the kids, that there's this difference and but the problem is like in the countryside. There's a plenty of kids that they are coming from there's the second generation. They are from the immigrant families, and they don't even speak their own language very good because they don't have the access to, for example, in our case, Polish school. But the same is with the Icelandic, and they are just there's growing generation of people of generation here in Iceland that they will be they will be stopped by the education to for example, they will have problem to get access to the higher education because they don't have any language. Basically, they don't have the basis to, for example, go past the exams and get to the studies if they are dreaming about it. So they will be frustrated, and this generation is they raising and they are they're growing up and they are they living in the countryside. Because for example, not all the parents, they are willing to, and they have the power to help kids learn or Icelandic or even their own language, because it's also Polish. Any language is really difficult to. So I think this is a really big issue right now when it comes to the topic of immigration in Iceland as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you guys think that the school system should provide some homework assistance, or should it just be a part of normal school time? Or
I think it should be a part of a normal school time. That should be like a sérkennsla. There should be that is my opinion.
Yeah, because the kids are spending enough time at school, they don't need more.
Especially
if they have Polish school on Saturdays.
Exactly. Yeah, that should be just a part of that's the reality. You can't put the same measures on everyone. That's and that is a growing community. That is my son is not the only immigrant child at his school, of course.
Yeah, so, I think I just it's really important to think that the Reykjavík is not the end of Iceland, and there's plenty of immigrants living outside the capital area, and they should get the access to, for example, tools that they are in Reykjavík or the capital area, and we're still talking about the lacking of the tools here in the capital area. So what is happening like outside the Reykjavík and the capital area? So I think that we should do something about the smaller communities and immigrants living in the countryside, because also they are the most vulnerable when it comes to the problems with the workers' rights. That's where the main problems are happening. Of course, in the capital area, we still like get like a lot of support from the union, but like outside, it's kind of the gray area.
Yeah,
and there's
absolutely.
plenty of violations. Like when I heard stories from the Westfjords about the fishing factories, it's just like I'm getting a goosebumps. It's just there's like drug abuse. No workers' rights are having. There is nothing. Like there's just like drug abuse. There's like 16-hour shifts, and this is happening, and like. And we all know about it, but like nobody is like taking care, because often the people that they are working in those fish factories, they are like those workers, like how some people are calling them, the Romanian tourists. They come in here for 3 months, they don't have kanitala, and they're just being underpaid. And also because I was talking with one person as I'm doing a project about the fishing factories, there is the problem that those people, they were actually coming to the work sick. And he was telling me, the person, that I got COVID-19 because they were coughing in the factory, and they cannot have the days off. So yeah, I'm feeling that we need to do something more when it comes to foreigners or like immigrants outside the capital area.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go a little bit to Sanna. Sanna, do you want to ask them any other questions that I'm not thinking about in the end?
I think we just definitely need to have this conversation more often, and to just like listen, because in Iceland the focus has been with locals. I feel like the focus has so often been like, oh, with foreigners the focus should be on like, this kind of us versus them, like they need to just get accustomed to how things are here, and as soon as people with a foreign background learn the language, then everything will be all right, and blah blah blah. But people that are born here in Iceland, they often don't acknowledge the fact that they also need to change and make an effort to also get accustomed to changes in the society, and make an effort to be like, okay, how can I help someone or support someone, or like what am I doing that is prejudiced or not supporting someone? And I think it's a two-sided coin. It's not just like people are coming here from different countries and they need to change or they need to do something. It's also people living here need to change and do something. It's like two-sided, if you get what I'm meaning. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also like that put us all into one box, what Agnieszka was saying. Like we are such a different, even like among us Polish people, we have different points of the political views, plenty of different backgrounds, and we cannot be put like such a big part of the community right now. Like we're talking about 14% of the population is of the foreign origin, and if you were telling that we are all kind of put into one pot, this is not going to work out.
And what I wanted to ask is like, I didn't maybe understand everything in the news about this, but when they are like wondering why people with a foreign background haven't been tested, or why such a certain percentage of people with a foreign background have COVID or don't have COVID, then I was thinking like, it's not a homogeneous group. I mean, people with a foreign background, some of them speak Icelandic, some people don't speak Icelandic, some are bilingual, some are learning Icelandic, so some people maybe have access to information through reading the news, listening to the news, listening to the radio. Some people get information from others. Some people are like working in the hospital. So I was like thinking, what is the basis for making this assumption? Because it's such a wide spectrum of different groups of people from different countries. So I was kind of like wondering on what assumption that was being made.
Well, I can't really speak for what assumption was made there, but I can find the first and biggest obstacle when it comes to foreigners coming forward and saying, okay, I have symptoms and so on, could somebody please come and check on me? And it's the same thing as always, it's the language, because, well, what were you supposed to do if you developed symptoms? You were supposed to call, pick up a phone and call either your Heilsugæslan or 1700. In both of those places, if you're lucky enough, you can communicate in English with somebody that's willing to speak English to you. Otherwise, it's just Icelandic. And talking to somebody in Icelandic on the phone is like, it's still really scary for my husband, and he's been here for 13 years. So for most people, that is a very, very, very difficult thing to do. And also, you're supposed to be answering this a very, like a serious matter, and you're supposed to be answering questions that you might not understand, because we are talking medical language, maybe not a very advanced one, but still. And I think purely that could have stopped people from actually like contacting anyone. So that might have influenced the statistics quite a bit. Yeah, and I can't really see what other reasons could be for that. But also I think, I'm guessing now, that is just a guess, but I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of people that don't have this network, this net that will catch you if you fall, as we don't have it. Because we have our network that is made basically of people in exactly the same situation as we are, which means we have friends that have children and have no extended family here. So we can't rely on them, because we are all just sort of like those little groups within a society that we have to just rely on ourselves. And then you start thinking, what if I have to be quarantined? What if I have to go into isolation? Who is going to take, what if me and my husband have to do it? Who will take care of our kids?
Exactly.
Because there is no amma that will come and cook for them, and so on and so on. And I think some people might have been just scared.
Mm-hmm.
And also the thing that Viola mentioned, sometimes you just have a pressure from like your workplace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you have to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also with the workplace, when we were talking about like foreigners, we are very often working in those jobs that are like the lowest paid and stuff like that. And let's be honest, like the people that they have such a companies, they are not such a supporting the workers. So if you, for example, you need to go to quarantine for 2 weeks, and especially in this crisis situation, you might just get fired. And like, even like there was a plan, like situation when my friend, he was working in a bar, and like he asked to wear a mask, like he was denied, like he needed to take it off, although like there was like very often the customers, they were like not following the rule of the physical distancing. So yeah, like people are just scared to losing their jobs, and like so many people, like they lost their jobs from our group. So
often you can't afford to take the risk.
Exactly, yeah. It's just like you cannot take the risk. And like there was like I know so many people from the immigrant group that they were like, they had like, because I think like so very often there's a problem, we don't talk about the mental health of immigrants. And for example, I have a friend that she is struggling with panic attacks and with anxiety, and she was kind of forced, because like she is a tourist guide, and like there was the beginning of the COVID, and we still have tourists, and like she was needed to work, and like she was just suffering because of that. She was scared. So, and then she couldn't go to like the night, like, because she needed the money, like she didn't know if she can go, you know. It's like also like, who will listen to the immigrant that, oh, immigrant is having anxiety attacks? Like, this is not treated serious, like in any nation, like, yeah, anxiety attacks. And I feel like this is also the problem with the mental health, like, of immigrants, like the problem of the access to get help. It's crazy. And in this situation of COVID, of like lockdown and people losing their jobs, like I know so many people that they are depressed, who is not having a mental breakdown, like didn't have made the mental breakdown with all the situation, not being scared of the future.
Especially when you add this into everything. I mean, life is like, it can be hard enough to begin with, and then this factor comes inside and you're like scared, like, am I going to get paid the next month? Am I losing my job? Can I take a sick day off? Can I take 2 days, sick days? What if I need to go inside like a 14-day quarantine? What is going to happen then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also think about the case why there's not so many cases of COVID among the immigrant groups. It's also the thing that we actually, like, I think somebody said it in media, like there's like, because of the language, there are like two societies in Iceland. There's like Icelanders speaking Icelandic, and there's like immigrants that doesn't, and like we very often we don't interact. So I think that also might be the reason, because we don't interact, we don't have a big community, we don't meet so many people. So there is the spread of the virus. It's much like slower than, you know, in the Icelandic society, like locals, because they have much bigger families and they spend much more time with their like friends. So I think that could be also the factor, like one of the things, which is also showing the problem of the society. That we don't interact. So it's like two like different groups, communities, which is like kind of good for us in some points because we don't interact, but it's actually really sad.
Absolutely, and you guys had a lot less interaction with people from Garðabær who came from skiing.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I was serving them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're gonna make this be the last words. Agnieszka and Viola, thank you very much for coming.
Thank
and Sun
you.
Also. It was great talking to you, and maybe we will get to talk to you later again. You have interesting insights that we don't have. This was the show Þættir Reykjavík, and we will be back on Friday. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.